All right, everybody, let me know if you can see me live. I haven't seen anyone in chat yet be like, oh man, we're live. So hopefully you can see and hear me okay. Let me know how that's going. Yeah. Hey, everybody. I see people in chat talking about that it's a good time for them right now. I know we're a half hour later than we normally are, and that's because little man slept in this morning because it's raining here in LA, so everything's extra dark, and he usually wakes up with the sun. So he slept in a little later this morning, so his nap was a little later after swim class today, which is what I always do before this. So welcome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Naked Truth. Okay, we're live. You can see me. Perfect. Glad to hear it. So I saw some people in chat just before this being like, are we talking about how millennials are burnt out, or are we talking about like us as the millennials? People were confused about the title today. So basically, why I wanted to talk about this today was a friend of mine had forwarded me an article by Anne Helen Peterson that was in BuzzFeed called How Millennials Became the Burnout Generation. And I am on the older end of the millennial generation, so I looked it up today for this vlog specifically, but millennials are defined as right now 22 to 37 year olds. And that's how the most recent whatever generation guidelines, 22 to 37 year olds. I always thought I was an Xennial, which is like between Gen X and millennial, and the Xennials, like the people who grew up in pre-digital times but then got the internet through their formation, but remember a time of landlines and all that kind of stuff and no cell phones. But anyway, this is specifically talking about 22 to 37-year-olds, but I feel like it does apply to more than that. I don't know. Basically I wasn't expecting anything in this article to hit home with me, and it did. And it kind of made a lot of sense. And I thought, ooh, there's some stuff in here that kind of helped me have a mental shift, and I'm wondering if this helps you. I'm also wondering if this is an issue that's specific to the United States, or if people in other countries are kind of feeling this shift too. So anyway, yeah, let me just see. So people categorize. Curvo Custom says, damn, I'm a millennial. I can't go on now. I know. Well, and the reason that I think we think like, oh man, millennials is, first of all, older people in business always throw around that word like they're the, it's like when your dad tries to use slang and you're like, oh dad, please don't. Same thing when like older business people are like, we understand millennials. You're like, ugh. So I think all of us have a knee-jerk reaction to, not me. Plus people think that millennials are lazy and entitled, and they have this bad rap. And so this article set to understand why some of those things exist and some of those conditions exist. Hi guys. Hey everybody. E102 Gamma says it's a Western world issue, to be honest. Okay, well let's get into that. The New Zealand Jester says, I'm a pre-millennial who started off with dial-up modems. I started off with dial-up modems too, but anyway, this says that if you're 22 to 37 years old right now, that you are a millennial. So there's a lot of millennials that grew up with dial-up modems. But anyway, so she went on to talk about this laziness. And for her, she said she sees that manifest in like an errand paralysis, is what she was calling it, where small menial tasks seem like way too big of a deal that you can't even accomplish. And she was saying small things like doing laundry, putting something in the mail. She said a lot of people didn't register to vote because it seems like a small thing. And it's like, well, of course people look and are like, oh, you can't even do your laundry. Of course you're lazy. But why does that happen? And the author was like, I have a PhD. I'm writing 2 books. I manage a household. And when I started to think about this in terms of my own life, I thought, I manage a household with a baby. I don't have student loans anymore, but student loans are something that a lot of people struggle with. I have many, many jobs. You think about all these things that you're doing, yet again, for me, there are times that like, I have had a bag of clothes sitting in my car, true story, for months, that are clothes that don't fit me right, that I bought because I like, and they need to be altered. I mean, not even months. Let's take that back. I bought a shirt in New Zealand on my honeymoon that says, I went to Hobbiton and all I got was this one ring. And I loved it and I thought it was funny, but it needs to be altered because it's too big and they only had it in men's sizes. Anyway, that's been sitting in my car to be altered for years. Legit, for 3 years. And it's not a big deal to go and get it altered. I just haven't done it. Why haven't I done it? And it's because I don't know, it becomes super low priority, and that's what happens with a lot of these things, is the idea. Student loans do suck, Spanish Heart. I wholeheartedly agree. And so in this article, the author hypothesized that being burnt out is kind of our general condition. So even minuscule tasks can seem overwhelming if we deem them low reward, like high effort but low reward in terms of what comes back to us. And maybe that's why that happens. And I think that also saying, oh, they can't even do their laundry, they're lazy, kind of ignores all the other stuff that people are doing. And if you hear me say like we a lot as the millennial generation, it's because this article was written from a we standpoint, even though the author was pretty much, I would guess, around the same age as me. She's an older millennial, but still falls within that millennial, but grew up in a pre-digital time, if you will. Mainfold says the millennial burnout thing psychologist Jonathan Haidt has dived into. He has some really interesting studies and books into it, finding that it's mostly for the 1995 and up born millennials. Okay, interesting. So tell me, I'm interested then to hear if these things relate to you. So here's what hit home about this article to me that I wasn't expecting it to. She said that a lot of us, again, there's the us and the we. She said that a lot of millennials feel like they need to be working all the time and that that's what causes millennial burnout. And that hit home to me because, as I've talked about in this series many times before, I do feel like I need to be working all the time. If I'm doing something that's not productive, I feel guilty about that time. And that's exactly what she goes on to talk about in this article as being part of the millennial condition. So I was like, oh, maybe I do have some millennial traits, even though I'm an older millennial. But she basically said that the big American economy shift that causes businesses to optimize and be more productive means that you can no longer graduate from college with a degree and land a gig that you're going to be able to work until you're 55 and retire, like our parents' generation could. And so then even though the older generation is like, what do you mean you can't do that? That's way less likely and looked at from our perspective as pretty much impossible. I don't know anyone that's doing that. I don't know about you guys. Everyone I know is like, well, you work someplace a couple years until you can get a different job because your own job isn't going to promote you. They're not going to value you more than whatever they've already labeled you as. So you need to go somewhere else to get that promotion. And then you can even come back to your current company at a higher title and higher salary, but you constantly have to be climbing. It's not something that, again, you can just go in with a degree and say, well, you know, I have this degree, I've earned this job, and work until you're 55. So that's a big part of it. It also says that then because of that, we feel the need to optimize ourselves to compete. Like we have this idea that most people are not going to succeed, only a few are, and I have to work my buns off to be one of the few that are. And that's the reality from the perspective of this generation. And I certainly feel that. And I always thought that I felt that because I'm in the entertainment industry. But this article says that no matter what industry you're in, that this applies to you and you have that feeling. So that terrifies me for everybody else, but certainly is something that I relate to. So because we need to optimize ourselves to compete, then it's keeping our social media looking very impressive and impressing our friends and working multiple jobs and paying off student debts or getting more schooling because a more advanced degree looks more impressive and we have to be more impressive to compete. And like I was saying, you know, even when you have downtime, that downtime has to be productive and impressive and working towards a goal. And you can see, like you can hear how mentally exhausting that would be. Absolutely. And people are doing all these things and it's still not turning the financial profit that people thought. You know, you still can't pay off your student loans and have enough money saved to get a house or live on your own or have kids. And you read these articles that are like, millennials aren't buying diamonds anymore, millennials are having kids much later. And I think it's because a lot of people don't feel like they've reached the financial success that they wanted for themselves until a lot later. That certainly happened for me. You know, like I waited not because I wanted to, but because that's how life worked out to me. I didn't feel financially secure enough to start a family until my mid 30s. And that's, you know, our parents' generation are like, you know, my mom, I can't tell you how many times my mom said to me, you know, when I was 23, I owned a house and had a baby. And I'm like, cool, good for you. I definitely do not. I'm still working. And the article goes on to blame a couple different sources for maybe why this is why we feel like the world is working now, and this is our mindset now. Dragon King Gav says, I also hate how I can't buy a house because of the crazy market. Thanks, China. Okay, so it's obviously not just a problem here. Mainfold talks about that trap of becoming that endless student where people just they keep going back to school until they're over 30. I know a lot of times here it's because people can defer their student loans by doing that. So many rebel and just jump on trade schools where they can get a job, which totally makes sense. So I completely get it. So anyway, this article blames a couple things. One that I didn't relate to so much, but I'm curious to hear what you guys think about it, is the author blames overactive parenting, where everything kids do when they're playing is sensory development and everything has a goal. It's not just playtime, run around, have fun. And when you go to the playground, it's not just go play and come back here when you're ready. Now it's like hovering parents because you're scared. And as a parent now, I can tell you that's 100% it. Like I read some, maybe we know too much. Like I read so many things and I'm like, well, if he practices painting today, that's great sensory development. And when I take him to the playground, you better believe I'm making sure he doesn't fall and break his neck because I'm terrified something's going to happen to him. And that maybe that parenting leads the generation as they grow up to kind of be scared of real world things. My parents didn't do that with me. I was still in the generation that like, go play, and 6 hours later my dad would go down the back porch and like do that real loud whistle, and I would come running. The author also blames social media for making us feel more competitive about everything, and not just that we need a job that pays our bills and is a good job that impresses our parents, but it also needs to be a job that looks impressive on social media and impresses our friends. Like, I have the dream job. Not only does it pay my bills, but I love what I do. And the author blames social media for that, which again, I don't know if I agree with that, but it's interesting food for thought, for sure. And that then doing work or sharing things on social media also becomes work because you're here also trying to compete with people and show how incredible your life is so that you can be in the small percentage of people that become successful. She also talks about how millennials in particular, this age range, suffered the most from the 2008 financial crisis, which again, I don't know that I think people that had to retire, I think probably suffered the most from it and lost all their retirement right before they were retiring. But she talks about how, millennials generally were at the start of they were at early adulthood. They were at the start of their career. The financial crisis hit. And then suddenly people that had much more experience and were working for a while lost their jobs and had to go to lower paying, lower tier jobs, which meant everyone just coming up was really like there were no jobs to be had that we thought, oh, I have this degree, I should be able to get this level job. And we were ending up getting this level job because it's all we could get. And it led to a lot of people either moving back in with their parents after school, getting roommates. I lived with roommates forever. But I don't know that I was aware of like, oh, this is because of the financial crisis. I was just like, whatever. But again, I was in the entertainment industry, so that's a little different. I feel like in the entertainment industry, you're raised to think, I'm going to be poor until I make it. So I was kind of used to that. But again, she says this contributed to the mindset of life is only going to be winnable by a very few people. So how do you make sure you're one of the winners in life? Again, the guilt and the shame when you're not working, always being productive, that burnout mindset of why can't I buy a house and have kids, and I thought I was going to be able to do that by a certain time. So I don't know. So people work harder, and instead of getting a better job, they get a second or a third job. I had 5 jobs at one point. I still have more now, but I don't think about that now. I think I have one job with a bunch of different employers. But there was a long time where I had like 3 different waitressing jobs. I was doing kids' birthday parties, like every tiny gig economy thing I could pick up and spinning my wheels nonstop because that's how I could manage to pay my bills. And that was my reality, but I didn't think it was unusual. But it is. It is kind of unusual. So then to fix it, how do we fix this problem? We think, oh, well, I need to go to therapy. I need to take more vacations. I need to schedule in more time. And even that becomes a to-do list. So even that is more mentally exhausting. And maybe she hypothesizes maybe that's not the right way to fix it. Maybe the only way to fix it is to acknowledge that this is a overarching issue that's bigger than just us, and maybe acknowledging it will help us have a paradigm shift. So anyway, that was my very long summary of my thoughts and all of this. And Llama Dungeon says, yeah, I don't think the entertainment industry is similar to any other industry. I don't know any other place where you're expected to not make it. Okay, well, and Llama Dungeon, are you here in the US or are you somewhere else? Because this hypothesizes that everyone feels like they're not going to make it. And so I'm curious to see if that applies to you guys. So my questions to you guys about all of this is, do you think this is primarily a US issue, or are these circumstances affecting young people worldwide? Is this something you guys deal with? So let's do the interactive part of the show, huh? Um, Dark Lamba says, I'm 30 and living at home. Even renting with housemates is expensive in London, which makes it even harder. I thought about extra jobs, but the tax would make it pointless. Okay, and so it is definitely a problem other places. Daniel Shade says, you have to switch a job. No one gives you a decent raise. But if you find a new company, then you can get a better starting wage. I agree with you 100%, Daniel, and my husband Nate is a perfect example of that. He started as an intern answering phones and moved his way up through the production accounting world. And almost every time he got a title raise, it was because he shifted to a new employer. And then sometimes he went back to the same company, but then again higher because of the work experience he gained elsewhere. So you need to be very active and you need to be climbing, I think, now. Mr. Terry Fournier, I hope I'm saying your name right, says, the 2008 financial crisis actually helped me. Was working in a car part factory, got laid off, went back to school. I now work in the film industry making animated feature films. That's amazing. Congratulations. So I guess yeah, it could be the kick in the butt that you need to start a new career trajectory, and I'm glad that it worked out for you. Mr. Terry Fournier says, I'm in Canada, by the way. Okay, great. Aaron Booth says, not a U.S. issue. I'm Canadian and it's the same here. Okay. Mainfold says, this affects all of Western culture because of a plethora of factors. Yeah, like I said, my friend sent me this article, and I don't normally consider myself a millennial. I always thought I was an exennial, like the transition in between. But a lot of this hit home for me. Barrow C says the vacation thing might be more US centric because 5.6 or 5 to 6 weeks leave here is the minimum in the EU. Yeah, I'm so jealous. Most places here that even give you, some places don't give you any paid time off. If you take vacation, it's unpaid. And places that do give you PTO, most of the time it's 2 weeks is what I found. Kind of the norm is like, at a good job, the norm is 2 weeks. And so with travel time, that's why a lot of people stay in the States, I feel like, when they vacation, or that's what I always did. Because to lose a day traveling in either direction when you max have 14 days is a lot. I mean, even our honeymoon, we went to New Zealand and we only did 2 weeks because that's all we could get off work. And I mean, we loved it. It was amazing. But we really had, between travel days and jet lag, we really had about 10 solid days to see stuff and enjoy stuff. Donald Mack says, I'm 20 and living alone and spending 3/4 of my wage on rent. I was like, you're 20 and living alone? Amazing. Oh, because you're spending 3/4 of your money on rent. Yeah, okay, that makes more sense now. Christian Poulsen says, I'm from Denmark and it's absolutely not only the US having this problem, though it isn't as bad here. Hi, Caleb. Caleb says, hey, Trisha, I'm a big fan. Hi, thank you for being here. Chris Martinez says, I'm 26, divorced with 2 kids. Luckily, after the military, I can have college paid for. So I'm not technically working right now, and I'm doing okay with bills and such. Yeah, I have some friends who are in the military, and that's really helped them kind of lead what we would call in like the earlier generation, a more traditional, I get out of school, I have a job, I work so long, and then I retire. So the military is standardizing that for some people. Coco says, hi from Indonesia. Hello back to you in Indonesia. Dragon King Gav says, I didn't get established until I was 37. And I feel like that's more the norm for people now. The New Zealand Gesture says, here in New Zealand, when growing up in Hawke's Bay, I was expected to work in the orchards during the season when I had no job. I feel all that hard work cost me some of my health now that I'm older. Whoa, that's really interesting. I never knew anything about that. I mean, I guess maybe that's like akin to people who work on the farm here. When my dad was growing up, he worked on the farm from a very young age when he still lived with his parents until he actually got drafted and then was a conscientious objector because of the religion that he was, didn't fight, and then he kind of started a separate career trajectory after that. Oh, Caleb says, I really love the naked truth. Thank you so much. And down to earth. Yay. Thank you so much. Okay, here. Aditya Anil says, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Thing is, while universities have increased and more graduates enter the world every year, jobs cease to grow, or at least grow in a manner in which the new graduates are attracted to them. Yes, I would agree with that. I think the attracted to them part goes along a lot with what we were talking about earlier in this episode, where we were saying it needs to be like, we feel like it needs to be the dream job. It needs to be impressive to our friends in addition to paying the bills. So I don't know how to marry those two things and make that work. Jennifer says, I don't get vacation at all because I'm not full time. And I'm not full time because I'm 26 and don't drive. And I can't get another job because I don't drive. It's a whole thing. It is a whole thing. And I encourage a lot of my friends that are younger, that are kind of in that boat, to hang out with a friend that has a car and learn to drive and get your license, and then see if you can buy like a very, very low cost junker with the expectation that it might only last 4 weeks. But at least that would be 4 weeks that you can work another job to get some money to buy another car. But again, then am I contributing by giving that advice? Am I contributing to this burnout mentality of, oh, we'll just work harder, instead of like giving yourself a freaking break? And that's something that I'm working really hard at now, that I feel like financially I do have my footing under me. I have a successful career that I'm happy with. I pay my mortgage every month. I pay my bills. I don't have student loans. Like, man, I feel like I've done a really good job now. But it's taken me a long time to get there. And still, I feel like I'm working all the time and I'm constantly burnt out. And I have those clothes that have needed to be altered in my car for 3 years. Like, I still feel like I'm not doing a good enough job because of this, or maybe because of this mindset. So, and I do try to fix it with therapy apps and and well, I just need a vacation, that's what I need. But does that really fix it? When you come back, are you picking right back up? I don't know. I don't have the answers. I don't know about you guys. So we've kind of already discussed. My next question I had to ask you was, what do you do that maybe actually helps with this? So my advice to everybody was going to be, try to acknowledge that maybe this is a problem that's bigger than you, and cut yourself some slack and give yourself a break. And if you have a day where you just want to watch movies, or an evening where you just want to watch a movie or take a bath, like, know that that's for your mental well-being, and that's okay. And that you need to take care of you. Because if you get super burnout, you can't take care of you, and then it's all for nothing. So I try to keep reminding myself of that. Todd Bergman says, university-based education jobs are flattening out, but vocational and technical jobs are flourishing. Unfortunately, the last 30 years of education has pushed that you must go to college. Yeah, I got a lot of flack back in the day on SourceFed for saying that I don't think college is necessary, and that I kind of feel like for some areas of the workplace it's a little bit of a waste of your time. And it's because I see people get so much more out of an internship where you're learning on the job but simultaneously making job connections, or going to a vocational school, or learning a technical skill, rather than getting a 4-year degree in English or communication that then you get out and you're like, well, what do I do now? Who's going to hire me now? I saw more success for people that were going the other route. So it's interesting that you bring that up. Melissa Langdon says, following my mom's divorce, I had to pay for all of my schooling. I wouldn't take it back. My mom moved out alone last year without notice. I had to move out. I live in my overdraft because of rent. Times are tough. Thomas Toft says, my philosophical take on it all, being of the political observation I am, it has to do with the politics that has gained headway since the end of the Cold War. Too much capitalism and not enough care. Interesting viewpoint, and we'll see how that changes moving forward with the current political climate. Spanish Heart says, I feel so guilty taking a day off for myself, though. I know. I'm the exact same way. I don't take it, like, even if I'm, like, sick out of my mind, and this is how I was in high school, too. Even if I'm sick out of my mind, I'd rather, like, bring a trash can and just vomit into the trash can in between classes than miss school, because I'm so afraid I'll fall behind. Chris Martinez again says, trade schools can be an amazing tool for some, and don't let people tell you otherwise. I like that. Don't let people tell you otherwise. That's good. Sean BS says, I do occasionally call in sick just to enjoy having an extra day off with nothing to do but chill. Hashtag feels good, man. Yeah, some companies give you those and call them personal days. So they're not necessarily sick days, but sometimes you need a personal day. Whatever that's for, and you don't have to tell people what it's for, which is great. Let's see. Llama Dungeon says you're technically right. College is a waste, but even internships want you to be pursuing a degree, if not having a degree already. I don't think college is a waste depending what you want to do. I mean, obviously, if you want to be a doctor, that requires a medical degree. Like, there's certain things that you absolutely need a degree for, but I think a lot of the more generalized degrees, unless you have a specific end goal in mind, I don't like the idea that you just have to go to college because that's the thing to do. And that was the idea when I was younger. Nick says, talking about it really helps, which makes the stream all the better. Thanks for this. Yeah, I read this article and that's what I thought. I thought, by acknowledging that this is what it is, maybe that will help us all to cut ourselves a break and look at things a little bit more holistically as not my problem, but an overarching problem. And that's not to say that we shouldn't take responsibility and still try to improve our lives, but maybe that mental shift will help us from a mental health standpoint. Tim Bottom says, these damn kids and their avocados on toast. LOL. Yeah, old man yells at cloud, 100%. I feel like I hear a lot of that. Mainfold also brought up a combo of older generation folks buying up real estate to rent it out and an increasing level of education required just for basic jobs to pay a livable wage is really hitting millennials hard nowadays. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like that idea of categorizing any whole group by a specific set of stereotypes. And, people could argue that that's even what we're doing in this stream, but I'm trying to kind of look at society and trends as a whole and not necessarily character traits of specific people, if that makes sense. So when I hear people say, oh, millennials are lazy, millennials are entitled, and everyone can point to like one person they know that's super entitled, I can point to young people I know that come right out of school and think that they deserve to be like super, super, super high up the chain. That's always going to exist. But that existed in older generations too. That's not specifically a millennial thing. But I feel like there is more contributing to this for sure. So anyway, I say all of that to let you know that I feel like it's really important that all of us, myself included, give ourselves a break every now and then. And whatever that is for you, figure out what that is for you. If you're like, man, I have 3 hours where I'm not going to do anything for anybody else, I'm just going to do it for me, what is that? For me, sometimes that's getting in the bathtub with a book and a little piece of dark chocolate and a glass of red wine. Sometimes that's my thing. For some people, it's painting. Sometimes for me, it's playing video games. I really like, and not like playing them on stream or playing them because I feel like I need to beat a specific game so I can talk about it for work, but just playing a game that's like a mindless zone out thing for me. Or sometimes for me, it's just taking a time out and playing with little man who's asleep in the room next door. Sometimes I just want to play with little man. And I'm starting to give myself the leeway to do those things and know that that's okay, even though they're not actively contributing to me furthering myself and getting farther along in life, really. Chris Martinez says, I'm playing Homefront right now because I have nothing to do for anyone. Dragon says, I sometimes wonder if I'll ever get married, have kids, and a house. I'll be 40 in 18 months. You know what? Everything is attainable. My husband had resigned himself to the fact that, and he is only 3 years older than me, but he had resigned himself to the fact that, you know what? If I don't end up having that like stereotypical white picket fence, house and kids, whatever dream that I thought I needed, that's okay. Like, I like my job. I like my life. I have good friends. He was renting out a guest house at the time, and he was like, I like my guest house where I live. And once he kind of made peace with that, then everything else fell into place a little bit more easily. I know that's much easier said than done, but that was at least that experience. Beardtastic Yogi says, playing games for fun. What a novel concept. I'm also trying to make a habit of going out with friends more often, and because when I'm out with friends, that forces me to not work. So that's something that worked with me. Other things that worked with you guys, let me know. Yeah, Kerbo Custom says, you can't further yourself if you're burned out. That's 100% true. Llama Dungeon says, college used to be a challenge, but the expectation of everyone must get one has lessened its value and decreased expectations. Only a couple of my classes actually tried to challenge the students. Yeah, and I think that's more of a problem with university education as a whole. And I read an interesting article a while ago on universities that offer kind of BS degrees and kind of placing the blame, or I would say asking universities to rise to the challenge of only offering degrees that will lead to actual employment, or focusing more on helping students gain employment after they leave. And this article is kind of saying like that universities are money hungry, and so that they will make up BS degrees to get people to come and pay them for 4 years that don't actually lead to anything, and that maybe they have an obligation to their students to be better than that. Jordan Fox says, when I was younger, I always thought I would never have kids or get married. 10 years of marriage and 2 kids later, it just kind of happened. Gonzalo says, I'm unemployed and I'm about to drink beer and watch football. Happy football times. Do you know my friends out here in California don't drink alcohol when they watch football? Which is so weird to me, being from the East Coast, where like that's what you do. You drink beer and you watch football. Anyway, side tangent. Daniel says, I like to get stuck going down YouTube rabbit holes. It's relaxing. Okay, that's a good thing to do. I definitely jump down internet rabbit holes, but to me, because of what I do for a living, that's like a weird amalgamation of, I'm doing this for me, but it's also work. But it's for me, but it's also work. Which makes it a little bit less relaxing, but I totally get you. Plus, anytime I see anything political, I'm like, nope, hard nope. Not relaxing, stressing me out. That's a hard nope. Stephen McDonald says, I don't know how Americans manage to pay for university. I would panic about the debt. It's kicking you down before you even start working. Luckily, Scotland is free education. Tim Clark says, West Coasters are strange. But yeah, it would be nice if we had certainly less expensive education here. It's outrageous, where it's buying a brand new car every year for 4 years. Essentially, it's the monetary equivalent, or sometimes worse now. That's what it was when I was in school. So I'm sure it's even worse now. Aaron Booth says, how is it even possible to sport without beer? I know, on the East Coast, you don't think that at all. Mr. Thierry says, I gotta go. I have to leave for a D&D game, and that is a great reason to sign off. So with that being said, I think we're all going to sign off. I have a game night with friends tonight. It's not going to be a D&D night, so I'm a little bit jealous, but we will probably play some pretty in-depth board games. That's how we like to roll. So thank you guys so much for tuning into This Naked Truth. Before I go, I do want to say that there are people out there, even though this is a more interactive live version of Naked Truth now with Naked Truth 2.0, there are still people who are making their own video responses to the Naked Truth, and I posted those over in the community tab of this channel if you want to check those out. Thank you to everyone who's making your own Naked Truth vlogs, and if you make them and want to comment on that with a link to your video, go right ahead. Let's all share. If you feel like you want to share your story, maybe your chat wasn't read aloud, but you want to talk about it some more, I try to watch all of them, so please go ahead, post them to your channel, and then link them there so I can see them. Also, we do have a Naked Truth Discord channel in my Discord, which I link to in the description of this video. So if you want to join the Discord to hang out in between streams or find out when I'm doing other stuff, feel free to do that. Or you can just hang out in the Naked Truth channel and talk about Naked Truth stuff with everybody else. So thank you. And in the comments or in the Discord, please make sure to keep suggesting topics. I like talking about what you guys want to talk about. It's not always just therapeutic for me. It can also be therapeutic for you. So again, thank you all so much for watching this week. And remember, between now and next Naked Truth, to give yourself a little bit of a break, because you deserve it. And you work real hard. All right, guys. Have a good one. Bye.